Soldiers of Christ, arise and put your armor on. Strong in the strength which God supplies. Strong in the strength which God supplies through His beloved Son. Strong in the Lord of hosts and in His mighty power. Who in the strength of Jesus trust. Who in the strength of Jesus trust is more than conqueror. Standing in His great might with all His strength endued. But take to arm you for the fight. But take to arm you for the fight, the panoply of God. Leave no unguarded place, no weakness of the soul. Take every virtue, every grace. Take every virtue, every grace, and fortify the whole. That having all things done and all your conflicts past, you may o'ercome through Christ alone. You may o'ercome through Christ alone and stand entire at last.
One of the things which puzzles a great many non-church-going people, and which may well be one of the reasons why they are non-church-goers, is the bewildering number of denominations that exist. And the question that these people ask is a very simple one. Why do religious people not all see the Bible alike? That's the question that I want us to think about this evening. Why is it that religious people differ? Why is it they don't all see the Bible in the same light? Now, of course, to a great many, the Bible's a mysterious book. And I'm not speaking particularly of religious people, but of people outside of the churches and denominations. To them it's a book that is strange and difficult, and so very often they never take the trouble to read it. And when we speak to them, they tell us they can't understand the Bible, which naturally is only to be expected. They don't understand the Bible, so they don't read it. They don't read it, so they never learn to understand it. And I suppose that in this way they've worked themselves into a kind of vicious circle, and they deny themselves the blessings that they might derive from reading and understanding the Bible. And what is so very sad is that as a result of this attitude towards the Bible, they very often pick up along the way a lot of strange and wrong notions about it. I suppose that here, just as in most other areas of life, they simply repeat what they've heard other people say. For example, the Bible's full of mistakes and contradictions. Or the Bible's just an ordinary book written by ordinary men. Or the Bible's a pious fraud perpetrated by men who wanted to exercise authority over others. Or the Bible's just fiction or fable or fantasy, and you shouldn't take it seriously. Or you can make the Bible mean whatever you want it to mean. Now, every single one of these statements is, I believe, as wide of the mark as it could possibly be. For example, as to the reliability of the Bible, let me state categorically that I deny that the Bible is full of mistakes and contradictions. And I don't believe that anyone who's ever read it with a fair and open mind will make that statement. In fact, whenever you meet a person who makes that kind of assertion and tells you the Bible's full of mistakes and contradictions, you need not have any hesitation at all in saying to him, you can only say this because you've never taken the trouble to read it thoroughly and you've never studied the evidence. I say you may say that and you may hit the nail right on the head. Do you know that the Research Science Bureau in Los Angeles has had a standing offer of $1,000 to anyone who can find a single contradiction between Bible and science? You see, invariably, this statement comes from people who've never actually seen a contradiction or studied a mistake, but they've heard about it from somebody else. They've been told that the Bible's full of mistakes and contradictions. Now, you can make the Bible contradict itself if you don't mind mistreating it, or if you're prepared to deliberately misquote it. You can take verses out of their setting and make them teach things they were never meant to teach. But I don't think that anybody can handle the Bible reasonably and honestly and then produce evidence that it's full of mistakes and contradictions. And as for the Bible being just another book written by ordinary men, well, that again is a statement that it could only come from a person who really hasn't studied the Bible. Because what book in the entire history of mankind has ever exercised such an influence on men as has the Bible? Now, I'm not talking about the vast numbers of Bibles that are printed every year. I'm not speaking of the fact that it's the best seller of all time. I'm not speaking of the incredible number of languages and dialects into which the Bible has been and still is being translated. I'm not even asking you to consider that when our scholars manage to unravel the unwritten speech of a remote or a little-known tribe, the very first book that is printed in the new language is the Bible. And, of course, all of this ought to say something to an intelligent person. No, I'm talking about the influence this book has had all down the centuries, and particularly since, by the marvel of printing, it's been put into the hands of people like you and me. I am telling you that for an ordinary book, as we're asked to believe the Bible is, written by ordinary men, it has had a mighty influence, an extraordinary influence. I happen to know that until a few years ago at any rate, I don't know what the situation is today, there was a warehouse in South London where a copy of the Bible was packed and shipped every 2 seconds of the working day, and to at least 132 different countries. Sometimes the Bibles were shipped out in small parcels, but very often they went out by the ton. For example, 13 tons of Bibles were sent to Burma, and the government of Ghana ordered 500,000 copies for its schools. Why, the Bible's outsold everything else that's ever been written, and still sells at over 200 million copies a year. It's been translated into well over 1,200 different languages and dialects, and, as I've already told you, they're constantly working on new languages. And by the way, if the Bible is just an ordinary book written by ordinary people, it's about time somebody told the communist Chinese. Because some time ago, such was their respect for the influence of the Bible, that Red China was producing counterfeit, fake versions of the Gospels. For example, imitation copies of the Gospel according to Luke. They were copies of editions that were put out by the Bible Society from Seoul, from the depot there. But although the covers were just like the ordinary copies and the printing was the regular printing, inside the Gospels were filled with anti-American propaganda. Now, the Chinese are experts in psychological warfare, and they wouldn't take the trouble to do this if they didn't believe, in the first place, that people read the Bible eagerly, or secondly, that the Bible has an influence. Do you know that the demand for Bibles in Poland has been greater than ever since the communists took over? Do you know that the communists prevented a van load of Bibles entering East Germany from the West because they said it was propaganda? Evidently somebody believes the Bible is not an ordinary book, and somebody believes that its influence isn't an ordinary influence. Now, you may neglect this book, you may refuse to read it, but you can't ignore it, because there is no book known to mankind has exercised such a powerful influence on the hearts and lives of men as has the Bible. And furthermore, it's the only book that I know of for which men have gladly laid down their lives, and the only book which even today is feared by wicked men and evil governments. Now, that raises a third argument. What about the claim that the Bible is just a big pious fraud perpetrated and concocted by men who, in the name of religion, wanted to get a hold on their fellow men? Well, that is nonsense. It cannot be true, for the simple reason that the influence of the Bible is only for good, and entirely for good. Do you really believe that bad men dreamed up such a wonderful story as the story of the life of Jesus Christ, who went about doing good? Do you really believe that bad men managed to create such a noble character as that of Jesus? It was the Frenchman Rousseau who said, "If the character be fictitious, the inventors of the story were as great as their hero himself." Now, you must admit that no one ever became a bad person by reading the Bible. And that isn't true of every book that's available today, you know. You can pick up literature from our bookstores and bookshops that has about it the very stench of the sewer itself. There are books and magazines that pollute and corrupt and degrade and debase, and from the very reading of which you become cheaper and coarser. You feel unclean, but not the Bible. No one ever took up this book and read, for example, the passage on love in 1 Corinthians chapter 13, and then went out and committed a murder. No one ever read the 23rd Psalm and then stole from somebody else. No one ever read the story of the prodigal son and then went out and attacked women on the street. There are books that have this kind of evil influence, and if you'll examine them, you'll discover that they were written by men who were depraved and evil themselves, and men who, through the printed page, have tried to spread their depravity and poison. But not the Bible. Men and women become better people, lovelier people, cleaner people, more understanding, more sympathetic, more tolerant, and happier through the influence of this book. I say again, bad men did not write the Bible. Bad men do not write in this way, nor does their work have this effect. Then what about the view that the Bible is a book of fiction or fantasy or fable, not to be taken seriously? Well, once again, this is a mistaken notion held by people who simply haven't taken the trouble by studying it to discover what the Bible is saying. Because nobody examining this book ever reaches that conclusion. This is not some kind of spiritual Gulliver's Travels or Grimm's fairy tales. It's not even a book like Bunyan's Pilgrim's Progress, a very excellent book which sets out to teach truth in the form of symbol or figure or allegory. No, there are stories in the Bible, of course, there are illustrations, there are parables, but by far greater is the part of the Bible which is history and fact. History and fact which can be and which has been and which is constantly being verified. If you read the Bible for yourself, you'll have no difficulty in distinguishing what is fact and meant to be understood as fact, and what is parable, meant to be understood as parable. Let me state plainly what the true case is. The Bible does not contradict itself. It is not full of mistakes, because it was not written at the suggestion of or at the instigation of men either good or bad. But as Peter says, holy men spoke from God as they were moved by the Holy Spirit. For as Paul says, the Scriptures are inspired by God. And the purpose of the Bible is not to amuse or entertain by telling curious facts or fables, but to reprove and rebuke and exhort and correct by recording fact, history, showing how God has dealt with men all down the ages, dealt with them with a view to bringing forgiveness and happiness and hope to mankind. Now someone might say, if all this is true and the Bible is such a wonderful book, why are there so many different churches and denominations? After all, they all claim to believe the Bible. They all tell us they respect the Bible. Why don't they all see the Bible alike? Why don't they teach the same things? Now, that is a very good question, and it is usually asked by sincere people who find it to be a genuine problem. Why are there so many churches and denominations, and only one Bible? Is the Bible to blame for religious division? What do you think? Let me tell you what I've heard people say. They say, well, you can make the Bible teach anything you like. You can interpret it any way you like. It's all a matter of interpretation. One person reads the Bible one way and gets this out of it, and somebody else comes along and interprets it another way and takes something else out of it. They're not to blame for that, because you can make the Bible teach whatever you want it to teach. It's all a matter of interpretation. Now, is that true? Is the Bible that kind of book? So vague and hazy, so indefinite and imprecise and flexible that you may stretch it like a piece of rubber or squeeze it like a bit of modeling clay into whatever shape you like? Not at all. It is no more true to say that you may make the Bible teach whatever you want it to teach than to say you may make 10 times 10 equal 1,000, or 10 times 10 equal 50, or 10 times 10 equal 110, or whatever you want it to equal. Oh, true enough, you could say that 10 times 10 equals 1,000, and you might even act upon that. You might even behave as though that were true, and you might even base all your other calculations on that. But you would still be wrong, and all of your calculations would be wrong too. And if you behaved in this way, who would be responsible? Who would be to blame for all the confusion and error that your miscalculation had produced? Could you blame the 10 times table? I shouldn't think so. You could only blame yourself, or perhaps even the person who may have taught you wrongly. I realize, of course, that you might have a very good reason for wanting 10 times 10 to equal 1,000, particularly if you were counting the pound notes in your wallet. But that wouldn't make any difference to the correct answer, would it? You would still be wrong. And I further realize that you might even make this mistake in all sincerity. And you would still be wrong in spite of your sincerity. So with the Bible, it is simply not true to say that one may make the Bible mean whatever he wants it to mean by interpreting it to suit his purpose. The Bible is truth. Jesus said, "Thy word is truth, and truth is one," just as there's only one correct answer to the sum. The Bible may be wrongly added up, my friend, so that people come away with the wrong answer, but you shouldn't blame the Bible for that. So the answer to the question, why don't all people see the Bible in the same way, is simply this. They don't all approach it in the same way. They don't all treat it in the same way. If you come to the Bible regarding it as the Word of God, inspired by God, and you accept it as the only reliable guide, the only sufficient guide, there would be no problem. Because we're not divided today over what the Bible teaches. But division arises when men refuse to accept what is plainly taught, and when they add to what is revealed in the Word of God. Next week I hope to advance some of the reasons for believing that the Bible is inspired by God, and particularly to talk about some of the scientific facts revealed in the Bible a long time before men discovered them.
Each day I'll do a golden deed, by helping those who are in need. My life on earth is but a span, and so I'll do the best I can.
Life's evening sun is sinking low.
A
few more days,
and
I must go
to meet the deeds that I have done, where there will be no setting sun. To be a child of God each day, my light must shine along the way. I'll sing His praise while ages roll, and strive to help some troubled soul.
Life's evening sun
is
sinking
low.
A few more
days,
and I must go
to meet the deeds that I have done, where there will be no setting sun. The only life that will endure is one that's kind and good and pure. And so for God, I'll take my stand. Each day I'll lend a helping hand.
Life's evening sun
is
sinking low.
A
few more days,
and
I must go
to meet the deeds that I have done, where there will be no setting sun. I'll help someone in time of need, and journey on with rapid speed. I'll help the sick and poor and weak, and words of kindness to them speak.
Life's evening sun is sinking low. A few more days, and I must go
to meet the deeds that I have done, where there will be no setting sun. While going down life's weary road, I'll try to lift some travelers low. I'll try to turn the night to day, make flowers bloom along the way.
Life's evening sun.
Life's evening sun
is sinking low.
is sinking low.
A few more days.
A few more days.
And I must go.
And I must go to meet the deeds that I have done. Where there will be no setting sun. Would you be free from the burden of sin? There's power in the blood, power in the blood. Would you or evil a victory win? There's wonderful power in the blood. There is power, wonder-working power in the blood of the Lamb. There is power, wonder-working power in the precious blood of the Lamb. Would you be free from your passion and pride? There's power in the blood, power in the blood. Come for a cleansing to Calvary's tide. There's wonderful power in the blood. There is power, wonder-working power in the blood of the Lamb. There is power, wonder-working power in the precious blood of the Lamb. Would you be whiter, much whiter than snow? There's power in the blood, power in the blood. Sin stains are lost in its life-giving flow. There's wonderful power in the blood. There is power, wonder-working power in the blood of the Lamb. There is power, wonder-working power in the precious blood of the Lamb. Would you do service for Jesus your King? There's power in the blood, power in the blood. Would you live daily his praises to sing? There's wonderful power in the blood. There is power, wonder-working power in the blood of the Lamb. There is power, wonder-working power in the precious blood of the Lamb.